so what is your full name, and why were you named this, if you know?
My name is Danelle Chappell. My last name is because it was my father's last name, Chappell. And my first and middle name is because at the time my mother had a best friend, and she let her best friend name me Danelle Finari because they both had 7 letters in their name. I later met her in the kitchen and said, "Why did you name me Danelle Finari?" And she said, "Because they both have 7 letters."
Okay. Sounds great.
And so, it's an accidental susicle, Danelle Chappell. But it works.
Alright. What is the date of your birth and the place of your birth, if you know both?
The date, I better know the date of my
I
birth.
hope you know the date of your birth.
May 14th, 1982. I actually don't tell anyone that. No one at work knows how old I am, actually. But, yes, May 14th, 1982. I was born in Booth Memorial Hospital in East Cleveland, Ohio, because that was one of the very few hospitals that you can get a cesarean section at.
Huh.
And so I was, if this was Macbeth, I'd be like Macduff, and I'd be able to kill Macbeth because I was born through cesarean. I believe. I need to ask my mother. Like, was I actually born? Like I know the hospital is famous for that, but was I actually? But that's like a weird question to ask your mother. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I'll ever ask it.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So focusing sort of on the younger years, you can go all the way through high school if you want, but what was your schooling like? So how did you get there? What was the atmosphere? Maybe your favorite subject, anything like that? Younger schooling.
Younger schooling, like elementary. My elementary school was cool. It was Roselle, so imagine being Danelle Chappell from Roselle. Our school had a little building and a big building because one building was little smaller. It was 2 floors, and it was basically for pre-K and kindergarten. And then the big building had 1st through 6th grade, and our school looked like a castle. So it was always cool going to a school that looked like a castle because your imagination could play games with it. And in front of the school, there was a huge field, and there was grass, block steps, a playground, and then in the field for the school, a diamond so you could do kickball and stuff like that. So it was just this big grassy field. And so for the first years, I got a ride to school, which was weird because I was like around the corner from school. But then as you get older into the big building and through some of the 2nd and 6th grades, you just walked, which is just like around the corner. And so you just had to cross this big field and go up these steps, and that's how you met most of your friends and stuff like that, just from the neighborhood. So I went through Roselle. It was cool. I mean, it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you remember not being able to read, and one day you're able to read. This is back when kids had recess, so I don't even know if anybody's ever gonna remember recess.
Uh-huh.
But this is when we took a break from school and played. Play, like, but agendaless play, like not like trying to, we had gym where I got introduced to obstacle courses, which was cool. We had music classes. I mean, I got the point of them, but it was like 45 minutes, like once a week. So it was like, it was just a way of getting out of your regular class. I had actual chalk on chalkboards, not these smart blackboards. Computers weren't a thing back then yet. So, I mean, seriously, they weren't a thing. We still had house phones. This is back when you actually memorized numbers. Which, by the way, I can't do anymore. I actually lost that ability soon after college when cell phones became a thing. But these were my early years. I remember. I remember. I don't think about them anymore, which is quite wild. I guess each memory I have or each period of life, I only really go back the more immediate. I don't really recollect or kind of look back on as far early. And when I was younger, I looked back on it more. But yeah, anyway, kindergarten was nice. I remember elementary. I remember taste tests and learning how to do that. I remember something called field day at the end of the year where all the grades got out to play. And I remember always wanting to go to the next level. I remember science fairs. They were always fun things. Just learning about yourself. I remember learning how to write cursive. I don't know if anybody knows what cursive is anymore, but I remember learning how to write cursive. I remember taking handwriting courses. I was never good at it, I still am not. Like, most people look at my handwriting and say, you must be left-handed because you write so terribly with your right hand, which is actually quite true. And actually, like a lot of people like my writing with my left hand better. People were right-handed, so I just went with the flow. My mother was an assistant. She was an assistant with kindergarten and first grade and stuff like that. She used to come to the school and used to sit in and help teachers grade and stuff like that. And she was very active my very early years. She was very active at the school and knew the teachers knew me, and they knew my brother who was before me, and you just got to know them, and you tried your. I don't know. That's back when I really excelled in school. That was back when I was a straight A student. I really liked it. I don't recall much homework, but I knew it was a ton. But I don't recall it. You should just go and do it and learn it and regurgitate it and do what they needed me to do. Academic challenges were fun back then. But not a lot of pressure on aptitude tests. I don't recall that. I recall when we had dress code come in and the logic behind dress code. Hey, if you all dress alike, then nobody will be fighting over who has the best clothes or anything like that, and nobody will be able to tell who else is poor. Which is not true. If you were rich, you didn't go to our school. I don't know what they're hiding. If you were rich, you weren't there. I mean, what are you talking about? And school clothes weren't cheap anyway. I mean, school clothes were just as expensive. Because once you have a monopoly on something, I didn't know this then, but once you have a monopoly on something, you just, hike up the prices. So a cheap pair of blue pants all of a sudden that used to be like $2, $3, $5 or something like that turned into $20. And, so I had London fog pants, and those were good pants, and, I had to not mess them up. But, I mean, it was what it was. I really didn't have too many cares or worries back then. I was a chubby thing. I was as tall as I was wide, and I wasn't much of a talker. Kid you not. When I was younger, I wasn't as much of a talker. Younger, but until I got older, I was still shy. Your friends were your friends, man. You went up in the same classes together, same schools together. You were together all day long. Like, these are the people you learned how to be friends with, and it was just because of commonality. It was just, even if you didn't have anything in common, even if you hated each other, it was like your class against all the other classes, your school against all the other schools, and your group of friends to get you home. Like, you walked with each other to get home, and that's your street now. So those were your friends, and we ate apple pie and went on field trips. I mean, life was pretty doggone good. I tell you what, it wasn't until you come of age that things get complex. But by that time, you just stick with who you got, and they work it out with you. There was one incident. I was older, about 5th or 6th grade or something like that, and a skunk had sprayed a bush. And I didn't know nothing about how skunks work or did or whatever, and I swept against this bush with my jacket. And so I'm in class all day reeking of skunk. Now, my friends were tearing. It was absolute torture. And I'm like, what? What? I guess too many weekends of me going on natural. I just didn't. I'm like, what is going on? Skunk doesn't bother me. And I tortured them for an entire day because they didn't want to hurt my feelings about me smelling like some skunk. But later on, a couple days later, they was like, man, I didn't want to hurt your feelings, but I was dying. And so that was elementary. It gave me foundation. It gave me basics. Boy, and then I wish I would have kept more of it as I got older, but once your dynamics changed, your demographic changed, I had to shed that in middle school, and I had to readjust. It was a different animal. It was a different beast. And then again in high school, I had to readjust. So I was very different from elementary to middle school, and then very different from middle school to high school.
Okay. Do you remember having a set dream or what you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were younger, or were you just going with the flow and thought you figured out later?
No. I mean, no. I didn't even think about that type of stuff. I mean, I really didn't. I was just floating. I like things. People told me what they thought they wanted from me. But I didn't particularly love anything. And, if you talk to people who knew me back when I was younger, they thought, oh, you invent something, or you do this, or you're really smart, or well, we had racial lessons back then. I don't know if they teach young black boys how to be in this world or something like that. And they would. So they would teach me lessons oh, you know what I'm saying, marry a black woman, or something it was like different stuff I didn't even like girls back then, not for real I wasn't even thinking about that. I'm thinking of how am I going to get this oatmeal cream pie or something. I'm not how am I going to beat Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I'm not even thinking about they're trying to teach me they're trying to impart to me all these lessons that I'm not digging. But no, I didn't have a clue. I didn't think about it. I was just around, and no, I had no real idea back then, nothing.
So moving a little bit further in life, what was the first job you remember having? Whether it's the first kid job or the first big person job, or both, whatever you want to talk about.
I was raised lightweight, old school. There were no allowances or something like that. Maybe if I washed a wall at the house or something like that from my great aunt, they would give me 75 cents or something like that. And they say back in my day, this could 25 cents could buy a pound of sugar, which probably, I know they were meaning well, but it was actually, especially for a smart kid like me, I said working is terrible. I say I don't even understand the point of it. 75 cents for a day's work. I said this is crappy. So I understand they were trying to teach me work ethics or something like that, but I was not understanding it, especially young. So they later on they tried to get me, and this is still in my younger years, before I was eligible for real work. I tried to smash tin cans, and people would try to get me to do different things, like mowing the grass and stuff like that. And I was pretty bad at all of the basic fundamental work ethic stuff that you were supposed to learn as a kid. I was just pretty much not into it. It was pointless. It was not worth anything to me, and and I wasn't even shunning it to go play. I was just let me go in the house and watch some cartoons and read a book. I don't understand what all of this is about. I don't know if I should be saying this for your project or something like that, but we're going to be honest. When you were a kid, back when I was growing up, the neighborhoods weren't as they sent kids for errands, and so you would go for errands. So they sent me. I would go buy cigarettes for the neighborhood or something like that, or play their numbers or something like that, lottery ticket numbers. So for doing that type of stuff, I would get they would give me enough money to get a Chico stick. like that little peanut butter hard candy stick. I don't know why they thought it was delicious, but or I'd like make enough for a Goodyear bar or something like that. Or if they needed me to get somebody from the local, if a family was sending for their loved one to come back from the local bar, they would like send me up the street or something. Like when I got old enough to cross the street, they would send me to bring them back. So like, like you need to come home now. And then they would the bartender would pour me like a root beer or something like that. And then I like drink the root beer. I'm like, yes, we gotta come home though. And then I walk them back home. And so those were as a tiny person, those were my first jobs. Just errands and household chores, which I learned nothing from. My foundation of work ethic was just terrible. I just didn't get the economical point, and there was none. It was just to work hard. Like I wish you would have just told me that, but it was what it was. So that was my early jobs, like kid jobs. My first jobs were when I was older. I think I worked for got a job at a Christian nightclub, but I was a teenager then. Do you want to go in teenager years?
Sure.
Christian nightclub. We're in choir. And we sang for this place, and there was this one group that was opening up. I want to call them Lighthouse, but I know that was, even if that wasn't the name of the group, that was a song they sang. There's a light in the lighthouse. And I'm like, okay. And we was in choir, and we went to this place, and it was like, the lady was like, oh my goodness, yes, we're a Christian club. I'm like, that's cool. It was like on Hayden, in East Cleveland. Next to across from the library, one of the branches of the library. And they was like, hey, you want to come and, do some stuff? And I was like, technically I was a busboy, really. I mean, I wash dishes, or if they had a party, I served green beans. I really didn't work there that long because, number one, the economics of a Christian club aren't that great. Unless they're serving parties. It was not alcoholic, so like their big marquee is they had a daiquiri maker, but it was a virgin daiquiri maker. There was no alcohol in the establishment, and so you would serve daiquiris. Like this was a thing, and I don't know who the market was for. Maybe it was for teenagers to have some place to go, but they were charging for that. And at some point, I realized the economics of that were not great, and plus I was getting cashed out, and so if you get cashed out of a place that doesn't have any customers, I mean, I'm making like $36 a weekend, and I wasn't on the daiquiri machine where you get the tips, so I'm like, I don't know if this was, like I said, my basic work ethic was always terrible, so I'm like, I'm always calculated. I don't know if my long term, what I hadn't figured out at the time is that 100% of zero is nothing. So it's better to work for $36 when you weren't doing anything in the first place than to not work for $0. So like I said, my basic work at the time was terrible. But that was one of my first jobs, and for years I told people that I never really interviewed for jobs. The only time I got a job is when I worked there first, and then they hired me, which was true for a lot of jobs. So I worked for the Christian club, and I learned a fundamental lesson that do you know where Christians go when they want to go to a nightclub? They go to a nightclub. They go to the same nightclub as everybody else. You want to find out where the Christians are on Friday night? Yeah, follow the crowd. That's where they are. I mean, I hate to say it, I hate to break it to you, but that's where they are. And then you're free to be yourself. So if you really don't drink, you just go to a regular place and don't drink. You don't go to a prohibition place that you can't because you want to be around people and friends and stuff like that. So that's what it was, and that's what I kind of learned from that job. And it helped me later in life. I didn't know it was going to help me, but it did help me understand some things later in life. Second job was a real job that I worked for Jacobsville Arabica. Or the guy who doesn't drink coffee worked for a coffee shop for a while, but it was cool. I got paid. They made me apply for the job after I had worked there for a couple weeks. I hope I don't get this company in trouble, but like my friend worked there, so I showed up. He was like, "Come on, work one day." The guy said it was cool, so I show up at Jacobsville. I just show up to Jacobsville, And they're like, here's the guy. And so they walk me in, get me a uniform, and I'm working there for weeks, having a blast. And the boss actually comes, this is a real conversation, he actually sits me down, and he was like, you know, Danelle, we need you to fill out an application to get hired here because we actually have to pay you. I'm like, for what? I'm having a blast. Like, it was so much fun. And like, my hair was big leather, and it was like a puff out, so it like never fit in the hat, so I looked like Hey Arnold. So I was and they had to have 2 older people because our line actually served beer, but you had to be a certain age to serve beer. So I couldn't like be on the cashier or anything like that. So I was like the guy in the back. So it was like Hey Arnold in the back, and we had an older guy on the grill. So I was like station prep guy. And so I loved it. I had so much fun. Then I became stocker, and it was cool because they got paid every week. So I got paid every week, and sorry, Mom, I gotta tell the truth. For some reason, my mother thought it would be a good idea to hand me the cash for my check every week. And so like I was like getting like if it was $300, she would just like I'll take it to the bank and then hand me $300. And I'm like. So suffice it to say, I kept no money from that job. I didn't even spend it on anything. Like, I think I ate and bought so much food for people. I would like just go to Wink. Like one time, I remember going to Wink and Lister's and just buying 2 buckets of wings, just because I had the money in my pocket. Like in hindsight, I should have bought things like shoes and pants. But at the time, I didn't care about fashion, so it was what it was. But yeah, so so those were those were really my jobs. So man, I did those for a long time. I turned down one job that I shouldn't have turned down, and I don't know, for some reason, $5.15 an hour didn't sound like a great job to me. Again, I didn't understand that 100% of zero was nothing. And it was at a law school, and they had set it up for me. They said, come in. We know you were interested in law. This was a high school, so I had different passions in high school. We know you're interested in law. Work for this law school for 20 hours for $5.15 an hour. And I'm like, $5.15? Can't do anything with $5.15? So instead of working at the law school in college, I went and worked for snacks at the little convenience store in college. Like, I would stock the storeroom, and then for payment, get chips and the juice. Something's wrong with, like, my basic work ethic. Like, I tell you, it was terrible. I didn't comprehend this till years later, but all of it laid the foundation for what I would later do, which is, we laugh about it now, but in ministry, me and my co-pastor, Alan, sorry I put your name in this, Alan, but you're part of my life, so I tell him, in ministry, when I have options for something and an option for nothing, I will always lean towards the nothing. Like when we were doing campus stuff, and they were like, my internship was about to be over with the church, and they said, well, what are you going to do now? Well, and they were like, well, there's all these church applications you could do and apply for and stuff like that. And every church application I looked for offered zero money. It was a small not rinky-dink, but it was a small operation that had no funds, and I'm all like, oh my goodness, that looks wonderful. I have to build it from scratch. Oh my goodness, those people have nothing, and they can't offer anything. Oh my goodness, that sounds like my kind of thing. Or I wanted to go to Pine Ridge, South Dakota, because their kids have a high suicide rate. And I was like, oh my goodness, if I'm going to go somewhere for 10 years, and if I'm going to go someplace with no resources, and I'm going to dedicate my life to something, wouldn't it be awesome to go to a place where no one else is going to go? And who else is nuttier to do that? I was already poor, so like poverty wasn't a problem. Like I could be poor anywhere. I could be poor anywhere. So so that's how my brain had worked for years. It's not much different now. My natural instinct is to always go to the place for zero, but God is through His caring has forced me to view myself a little bit differently. But I'm always inclined to look for a place where no one is in line to go. Like I lick my chops with that. I'm like, oh my goodness, I got 5 years to spare. Hopefully, Lord willing. But why not? So, anyway, bad work ethic turns into, I guess, great ministry heart. I don't know. Don't tell anybody that, but that's
quote Danelle Chappell. So speaking of ministry, pastoral stuff, was there a time in your life that you were like, I really want to be a pastor? Like, was there a defining moment? And what was that journey like? Like, who helped you along that journey, or just, I guess, why did you decide that's what you were going to pursue?
Everything else fell out. No. No. I got
when nothing else is left, find Jesus, I guess.
No. I love Jesus, and I had Jesus way before I wanted to be a pastor. And pastorhood scared me because of the. And I guess I later on found out Martin Luther would do this, but of the struggle with holiness. I never, especially in my teenage years, when I found God in 96, 97. Grew up in the church, but I didn't find Jesus. I found Jesus. Pat Robertson. I was in my room. I was watching episode of Pat Robertson. I don't even know why. And he said the prayer that, like, Jesus wants you. Somebody's out there and Jesus wants you. And for this, I've heard it 1,000 times, but for this reason, I believed it. This time, I believed it. And I really said the prayer. Now, this is growing up in the church. People growing up in the church. I never experienced another religion besides Christianity, but I didn't meet Jesus till then. When I really met him, I really loved him, and worked it out from there. But whatever struggles were. But holiness was a problem for me. Holiness was a problem for my teenage years. I couldn't reconcile holiness, myself, and Christianity. And so people always thought I should be a pastor, or always pushed for that because I guess I had some intelligence about me. But that wasn't enough for me. Being intelligent and when you're a church kid, you see the church inside and out. So just quoting the Bible ain't a real thing. That's not pastoring, or that's not doing anything for me. I really had a problem with holiness, and sometimes still do, but back then really so, and I didn't understand it. I didn't know how to grapple with it, and it actually messed up. I was more inconsistent with church because of holiness. I stayed away from church more because I couldn't understand holiness than anything ever. And the thing that started helping me with it was it's a song, bless my soul, oh my Lord, and all that is in me. See? And it was like, okay, I have to start presenting everything that's in me. So I have to start bringing my brokenness and my holiness to God and stuff like that. And that's when Scripture started helping. You start reading about David. You got to start bringing everything to God, even your non-holiness, even your shadow life. As bad as it is, or as rough it is, because you need help to deal with it, because you can't. And if you try it alone, if you try to fix your holiness, or you try to do something in of yourself, you're not going to make it. And that's how I've been able to do it consistently. Everybody, what turned the corner from being a young Christian to doing this, to becoming a pastor, it was the more I kept bringing everything to God more frequently, more often, and I've been able to stay with it for years. 2 stories. I guess your professor is going to see this, but if you want an intimate portrait about real turning points with pastoring, there's a glimpse from my younger years, and then I'll tell you something that happened in my later years, and that's how I got to be who I am now and what I am now. My younger years, when I was a teenager, I pursued God. Like, I was serious, like, these young on fire cats, like, And my local church was small. It was aging. We were 25 people were passing away in a year, and but our community was small. It had been larger, but it was shrinking, and for all intents and purposes, kind of dying off. But they were trying. They were really giving effort to bring a vital life to, especially the kids who would come in there. But it was what it was. It was a bygone era. And I grew up Methodist, CME, Christian Methodist Episcopal. So what we would have to do is we would have to go out and go to these conferences. And if you really wanted to be around a lot of young people, if you really wanted to know the workings of the church, you had to travel to these conferences. And so my birthday gifts and my Christmas gifts were, hey, I need to go to these conferences. Hey, I need to go to this conference. Hey, I need to go to this conference. And I mean, not just the kid stuff. I used to go to the adult conferences. I wanted to know how this church worked. I wanted to know how I could be of use. I wanted to know how I could be of service. I wanted to learn from the old timers. I wanted to know the rules. I wanted to listen to the bishops. I wanted to hear the wisdom. I craved wisdom when I was first coming to this. I was like, I want to know how to do this, and it had nothing to do with pastoring. But I'm like, I wanted to know how to do this Christian thing. I wanted to know how to make it. I wanted to understand how you stuck with God. You're 80 years old. How did you stick with God for 80 years? I don't know. I was obsessed with trying to figure it out, and young people couldn't help me. You get what I'm saying? A kid can't help me with 80 years of Jesus. So I had to get with some people who had been with him for 60 years and 95 years, and they're old and they're hurting, and you stick with it. I'm like, how do you do that? How? And like, I was obsessed with that. And so we would go to these conferences, and there was this one time I went to this conference, and I loved hanging around pastors. And they were different levels of connections or levels of pastor that you could be, like fully connected, a full licensed minister, where you could go to different districts and stuff like that. And they had them come to this room after taking the test, and they were interviewing them. And I sat there, all night, from the beginning to the last person in that room. And these were all people who were going to get connected or on the line for pastoring. And one of the people, and they knew who I, and looking back, I kind of shunned it off, but they knew who I was. It was like the second or third to the last person in the room. We were just in the room together, because after you go in, you just go straight out. You don't talk to anybody afterwards. So we went from this huge room to about 3 people left. And the person who was one of the head people doing the interview came out and said, do you want to come in? Do you want to sit? I was like, I don't think so. She was like, you know why you're, like, I don't know why I'm waiting here. She's like, you know why. And that was one of the first time somebody affirmed it, but just deep down inside me, I couldn't go in that room. Did I want to? Yeah, in real life. I wanted to go in there. But I felt it wasn't my place. But, truth be told, I could have went in. She would have asked me. I'm young at the time. And they didn't know I didn't sit for the test or anything like that, but they gave the offer. You wouldn't give the offer to some person and they walk in and you turn them down. But, I was in and of myself. I felt I didn't have it. I felt that there was more searching. And for anybody out there who's listening who's going to hear this, if somebody asks or calls and it's something that you connect to, try it out. Because no matter when you accept the call of Christ, you're going to have to figure it out anyway. No matter where you start, you're going to have to figure it out. You're going to mess up. You're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to learn some stuff. So whether it's young or old, you're going to have to figure it out. Seasoning is just standing out in some weather and letting it hit you in the face. That's all it is. That's all it is. So you got to start somewhere. But I turned it down. It wasn't in me at the time. To later on, the call to youth ministry, where I was in a very bad place. A lot of people had passed away. I was really depressed. And one of my dear friends, he hates when I tell the story, so I'm not going to name his name. One of my dear friends was doing youth ministry, and he had got his girlfriend pregnant. And so he calls me out, and he's kind of telling me his woes about he doesn't feel like he should be leading youth and something like that, and he's kind of telling me how he thinks he messed up, and he's not going to do a good service for him. And then he flips the and I'm trying to console him and listen to him, and then he flips the conversation to me and I'm like, "What about you?" I'm like, "What about me?" "You ain't doing nothing. You used to hold the battle for Jesus, and now you just sitting on you." I'm not gonna say the word, but and so he said, "You need to come out and really impart and teach." And so he lit a fire up under me, and I went, and I had to figure it out. I mean, I really had to figure it out. I mean, every insecurity that I had back then, I still had. And the only difference was I went into the room this time. The only difference. I mean, I was the same. I mean, logistics were terrible. It was I was an inner city guy. Had to go out to a suburb that I was, I had familiarity with, but I had to make it out there. Logistically, it was terrible. I was poor. I mean, I didn't, bad work ethic. Bad work, it doesn't lie that good. If you don't work, you don't eat. Like, I was poor. I didn't have any money, so I had no bus. I had no bus fare. Like, it was terrible. I mean, it's just fight. But I had to figure it out, and I really had to bring everything that was in me, and I had to deal with the brokenness, and I had to be honest with it, and there were real consequences to it. There were real consequences to my brokenness, and there were real admissions that I had to make, not necessarily publicly, but I had to admit to leadership, here are my broken areas, and here's what I'm willing to do this. So to do youth ministry, there were some real things that I had to confess to senior pastor, associate pastor. There were some real things I had to confess, and some real actions I had to take, but I wanted to do it, and I learned the hard way. The long way around, and that's a terrible thing to say. Like, you learn while you were over kids and in leadership. Yeah, I learned the hard way, terrible way, but I learned, and I was always willing to learn, and I took the lumps, and so that got me started. And then you go forward to being over at campus. You transition out of youth ministry, which you never thought you would transition out of. Pine Ridge wasn't happening. It made no sense to go out of town when very own local church did something that I was looking for on it for all the other pastor assistants. They were offering me $0 for an incredible amount of work with no guarantee of anything. And so how could I turn that down? I mean, how could I turn an offer of nothing down? And so I end up in University Circle praying for people I have not met to congregate somewhere I have not seen. And that's how the phrase is, like, what we're going to do? We are going to go somewhere and meet unknown people, ask them to go to unknown places, and we're going to ask them to come follow Jesus with us. What was the difference? I mean, the difference is, I said, yeah, I took everything with me. I mean, how do you go from preaching maybe 2 or 4 times at the main campus or at the original campus to being 50% of the sermons? Like, how do you do that? Like, what used to, you had to set aside 3 days to do. How do you do this when you have a 40-hour work week or something like that? There's never, you can't be too busy. You're it. Like, there is no Calvary. How do you do that? It's as simple as the lessons that you've learned. It's the showing up. It's the taking the hit. It's the taking the beat and learning the lessons. And it's no different if I would have done it 2 years earlier, 2 years later. The only difference is I gave, my heart had time to take the lumps. My whole thing is covenant, really. And if no one else understands what covenant is, if you're going to pastoring, you need to understand covenant. I don't care all this other stuff you take. If you don't understand commitment, then you don't get it. If you don't understand commitment, you don't get it. This isn't a profit loss statement. This isn't necessarily a risk reward. It's risk. And discipling someone is 100% investment. It's 100% investment. You just take it as you can chalk it up as a loss. You might get something from it? Will something might come back to you? Will something might come back to your ministry? Maybe. But you don't know that going in. And you won't. So it's 100% investment. You just take it as is, and let it ride. It might profit somebody else down the road. It doesn't even matter. But if you don't understand covenant, if you don't understand commitment, I don't know how you last in this. I don't know how you last pastoring. Why do I pastor? I committed for a year. Every year I re-up. Every year I re-up for pastoring. I put it on the table, whether I want to do it or not, and I re-up. And that's it. That's it. Whoever comes, whatever failures, whatever successes, it's all on the table every year, and I commit for a year every time. And if I don't commit for a year, then I know that's about it. But I'm at this, and that's when I get to the end of the year. People ask me, "Did you enjoy that?" I'm like, "I'll know at the end of the year." And they used to get frustrated at when I was in youth ministry. They were like, "Did you enjoy?" I'll know at the end of the year. It's not one event. It's not whether the kid size went up and down. Is at the end of the year when I made my commitment, did I uphold the covenant? Did I say I was going to do what I said I was going to do? Did I sow seeds? Did I invest? Did I pray for them? Did I do what I could and stuff? And I assess it and can I do it again? And can I do it again? Do I got enough in the tank to do it again? And that's what it's about. It's a big covenant. I mean, it really is. It's about commitment, and because you learn with that, because you're willing to do what it takes with that, so that's something for me that over the long haul, has for pastoring, that does that's thing. I learned general church. I started off, with the guy with the yellow gloves and the plunger, and somebody had a problem in the bathroom. Go tell me, and I'll handle it. And I've had this several times. Something's happening in the bathroom, and this is my thing. That's why I make no qualms about getting the Lysol wipes out, and I feel like that's a hard. If you have a problem with serving, or you have a problem picking up trash, or if you have a problem with mopping, I don't. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. 2 to 4 years from now. Good luck. I don't know how. Don't disdain it. You don't always have to do it, but don't disdain it. Because a shepherd smells like sheep. If you're a goat herder, you smell like goat. If you're a sheep herder, you smell like sheep. So if you're smelling like cologne all the time, stop it. Get in the game. Unless you have people to do that. This is no knock on people who have echelons or structures. Bigger churches do big things and they have a nice little structure. But for the most people, if you're loving to go into ministry and you're wanting to and you're wanting the pastorhood, here's the facts. Most churches are small. Most ministries are small. You go look in the Bible, they're small places. Go look at your relationship statistics. You gotta do 100 invites to get 3 people, which is 3 people. I had to break it to you. 3 people is 3 people. So most churches are small. Look at the sower of the seeds. I was in we were at Great Lakes after my senior pastor. He was in it, and a lot of the pastor were getting depressed. I was like, I just come here to these mega churches. I don't understand it. And my pastor, as encouraging words, Brent, this is his encouraging words. The pastors who are like, my church is small. This is his thing. He was like, have you seen the parable of the sower and the seed? He was like, one fell on this ground, one fell on this ground, got choked up. He was like, and then there was good seed. That's like 1 out of 5, 1 out of 4. That's like a 25% success rate. Mm-hmm. And that's Jesus. So most people are gonna be small. Mm-hmm. That's his encouraging words, but that's the truth, man. I mean, most of Christianity, most ministries, most pastorhoods, you're gonna be small, and it's nothing against being big, and there's nothing against wanting to be big. But the majority of the pastors are gonna be small to medium congregations. I mean, and that's just what it is. And if you're blessed with a bigger congregation, there's nothing against it. But if you're going to go into the pastorhood thinking you're going to be big, good luck. I mean, good luck. Especially if you're preaching the entire Bible. Especially if you're preaching the entire Bible. I mean, that is a difficult thing to keep our audience when you're preaching the entirety of the Bible. When you're not a specialist and you're giving people the whole pie, or you don't canonize the canon of the Bible, it is very difficult to, very few people can do it, to preach the whole Bible and keep a congregation. It's very tough for Jesus, towards the end, he was saying, "Eat me," and everybody left. I mean, because he was teaching the whole gospel. I don't, when you teach the whole gospel, you're going to get some kick up. When it's not all prosperity or it's not all New Testament. Eventually, when you get out of John, I mean, you're not going to do all songs. Youth group, one of the most famous youth group lessons, people still wondering why I taught it Leviticus. Why in the world were you in Leviticus? A kid stopped and was like, "Wait a minute. Did he just kill an animal in this passage? Why are you having us read this?" I'm like, well, when you're preaching the whole Bible, you got to preach the whole Bible. And once you do that, the chips have to fall where they are. The chips have to fall where they are with that, because you have to, the Bible has to mess with you. It has to mess with you as a pastor. It has to mess with your congregation. We did a segment we did "Does God Really Love Me?" a series of in your series and stuff like that. But we just did a segment on the Psalms and happiness, and we were doing it out of the Eugene Peterson book, Long Road Obedience in the Same Direction, or something like that. And I kind of flipped the thing. I told people what the context of the chapter was about. It was about Psalm 128, happiness, or something like that. That was the title of the chapter. And the thesis was that Jesus, it's easy to be a Christian or something like that, because the way God has created you, and the way He has created the universe, and the way He's created the world is to create for you to be in sync with Him and in communion with creation and things like that. So it should be easy. What's hard is sin. And I told the congregation, I'm like, I know for those of you reading along, that is the premise of the book. So those of you follow, I don't want you to academically think that I'm just skewing anything, that I'm just ignoring what the text and the conversion of what we have you following is. But what I'm going to do today is I'm not going to try to convince you that you're happy. I'm not going to try to convince you that you even take that premise as true, because you need to struggle with that. And that has been a central theme of, much to my youth's dismay sometimes, I think, much to adults' dismay, I am not trying to convince you or necessarily getting you to get to plot points of my particular point of view. I want you to struggle with God. I would like for you to ask God, what does the crucifixion, the death, resurrection of Jesus Christ mean anything to me on a Tuesday? I would like you to ask that to God and struggle with it. Why do you wake up? And I have to be very careful who I ask this to. So if you're in severe depression, I won't ask it. If I feel like, especially if you have severe mental health, I won't ask it. But I ask some folks, I say, why do you wake up? What motivates you and stuff like that? If I feel like you're strong enough to struggle through it. Because I struggle through it. I struggle through, why am I working? Seriously, why am I getting up and going to work and putting in hours and paying for a place and trying to be doing this adult thing and feeling like I'm not succeeding and I'm not particularly a successful guy, and then on my when I'm off of work, I'm doing this ministry thing, and why am I doing it? What is it about? And some days I have a better grasp on it than others, but my overall motivation is I want to serve in the kingdom of God. I really do. I want to serve in the kingdom of God. And I come from a smaller congregation. And in order for me to serve in the kingdom of God, I have to be a tent maker. I have to work. I get to do this. And this is a driving force for me. It's it's a thing, but I have to struggle with it. I have to bring that to God. I have to bring my loneliness as a single pastor and pastoring couples. Everybody wants young couples, and they want young leadership in the church. And I once was that, and I'm none of it anymore. And I have to figure a way to pastor that and talk to that and speak into that. And I have to figure a way to do that, and I have to struggle with God. I have to struggle with God to do marriage counseling. I have to struggle with God about singleness. I have to struggle, and it's not easy, but that's what I learned. You know what I learned from the old people? They just keep going, man. They struggle with God and keep going. So how do you follow God for 70, 80, 90 years? One foot in front of the other. And when you can't walk anymore, you crawl. And when you can't crawl, you beg and please somebody put you on a straw little pulley thing and cut the roof off of a house and tell me to get to that man named Jesus. I don't know anything else in my heart. And were there other things that I would have loved to do? Be an ambassador, be a diplomat, be a judge, a lawyer, or something like that. And you know what? Life didn't pan out that way. But you know what I am? I'm a pastor for real. I mean, like, for real. Like, if I had no money, poor, broke somewhere, I'd still be a pastor. I'd still care for people. I'd still see so much in a person. Like, I look at people and I see so much in them. I dream for them. It's a little obsessive. I got notebooks for people. Kaylee only knows the half of it. He only knows. I've spoken to some of her stuff about it. But I got notebooks for her future because I just see so much for people. And if nobody else is going to speak it, I'll speak it. And it might be unwarranted or it might not come. I might not be the greatest guidance counselor in the world, but I see what God thinks of people. I see what God thinks of people, and it doesn't allow me to shut up for very long, and it doesn't allow me to not care for very long. It wakes me up, and it wakes me up. And even if I didn't have the title, I'd be with the sheep. Even if I didn't have the title, I'd be with the goats. And that's something. I mean, I don't know what it is for anybody else, but it's something to me. I mean, it's what is being what is the value of being a pastor? It's kind of like the Kingdom of Heaven movie. Like, what is the value of Jerusalem? Nothing. Everything. So I mean, that's. I don't know if I'm rambling, but that's it, man. To be pastor, to be someone who looks at people like God looks at them. I mean, I don't know a better calling in the world. I tell you what. And I don't know anything more that you need God to do. You need Him, and you struggle with Him, and it's worth it because at the end of the day, you get to see that. You get to see what God thinks of people, and that's a beautiful thing. I reckon.
Mm-hmm.
I reckon.
Well, you answered all my questions, or answered the ones I didn't ask. I just had them in order, so. Good on you, Danelle. Is there anything else that you think would be valuable information to share that we didn't talk about, or you feel good about your all your answers?
I mean, no, there's nothing. Matisse and Picasso, great painters, had a great rivalry. And Matisse passed away, and Picasso went to this elementary school art program, and he was in awe, saying, "Oh my goodness, all of these children are Matisse. How do you get them? How do you bring this out of them?" He asked the teacher, and the teacher told Picasso, "You got to know when to take the drawing away." So on that note, I think we should close.